Hey guys, Constance here. Welcome back to A Good Life Farm. So it is time to do my garden tour. However, we have got storm systems rolling in, and I can see poofy clouds building. I can hear thunder, and so I'm just going to do a really short garden tour this week. I'm just going to go here through the in-ground garden, and then I'll catch you up on the other stuff in the other garden next week. So my giant volunteer sunflower here has not yet opened up. I'm still leaning towards it being a lemon queen variety, but I'll be honest, as tall as it's getting, I mean, I did plant Mongolian giants out here last year. Maybe it's a hybrid, who knows, but it's mighty big. The swamp milkweed has been flowering, but the flowers are starting to wane, and I'm beginning to get the seed pods here. So I will probably hang on to some of these as they dry and save those seeds so that I can plant these wildflowers in some areas that I'm trying to get wildflowers to grow. These tomatoes down here are some of the late ones that got put in. They're all looking pretty good so far. They don't really need to be tied to the trellis yet, but they're doing good. They're looking good. I don't actually have anything planted on the other side of that trellis. I just have a whole bunch of Tulsi basil that came back on its own. I'm thinking I may put some of the melons in there that I have started. They're about yay big right now, and I think they'll get put in this week. I've been waiting for them to get their first set of true leaves beyond the first, baby leaves. So once they get a little bit more foliage to them, I'll be putting them out here in the garden. So check out my bean trellis. Holy moly! Now this side is the NT half runners that I grew last year. Actually, both of these varieties I grew last year, and the other side is the purple pod pole beans. And right down in there is my yellow squash. Got a whole bunch more baby squashes in there. And I had a little bit of space right there, so I just stuck in a Blue Beauty tomato plant. And I've had some zinnias open up this week. I think I just saw them for the first time open yesterday. Volunteers. So I'm very excited to see that my beans are starting to get blossom buds. So it won't be too much longer before there's blossoms all over here and then beans. So this down here is that larkspur that I put in week before last, and I had accidentally broken off the main stalk. But it looks like I got another one that's coming up, so that makes me happy. This cluster of tomato plants right here are also looking pretty good. We've got black vernissage tomato. This is a Blue Beauty, a tie-dye, and a Dr. Weish. So down here on the end of the bed is delicata squash. I've never actually grown this variety before. I had hoped I could put it up the trellis, but I'm kind of thinking it's gonna get too big and bulky for that. So I have got one over here that's kind of trying to escape the garden bed, so I've been kind of redirecting it around the corner, and then hopefully we can just kind of get it to wind back that way. And here is another zinnia that formed this week. It's not yet open. That down there is actually a volunteer marigold from last year. I had marigolds planted down here. And then down here I've got tomatoes on this side, peppers on the other. They all seem to be doing pretty well. Again, it's a mixture of tomato varieties. I've got an Abe Lincoln, let's see, a Florida 91, Dr. Weish, Hungarian Heart. Let's see, down there is a Bella Rosa, another Dr. Weish, and another Bella Rosa. And then this right down here is a Mongolian giant sunflower, as is this one right here. And these Mongolian giant sunflowers are so incredibly impressive. They get, I think last year they ended up being about 11 to 12 feet tall and a giant head sunflower on there. This down here is a volunteer zinnia. I don't really know what variety it is, but I had some zinnias that were coming up as volunteers and I just let some of them do that. This little patch right in here is some flowers, some perennials. That one back there is pineapple sage, which that's not a perennial here generally. Occasionally you can get it to come back, but it doesn't usually for me. And then you can see this down here. This is stone crop, and right there I've actually got some flower heads or some buds forming. So you remember when I planted my parsley and dill, I talked about how it seems like every year I plant it, but every year I don't really get any because the swallowtail butterflies raise their youngins in dill and parsley. It's like the only plants they do that on. Well, I recently saw some swallowtail butterflies, and guess what? I have now got swallowtail butterfly caterpillars. So I expect this this cluster of dill plants will probably end up being stripped just about bare because there are actually caterpillars on every one of the plants. It is what it is. I fully plant dill and parsley knowing darn well I'm probably not going to get any. I can't fault the butterflies. They're pretty. And they're great pollinators. So if they just take the dill, I'm okay with that. So right down here, I have got a gigantic cluster of okra plants. I've actually been going through and kind of thinning them out a little bit just because there's so many that have come up here. And this variety is Alabama Red okra. And if I remember correctly, I want to say that is a smooth, spineless kind of okra. I was actually talking to somebody about that the other day, so when that comes up, I'm going to make a note of it so I can let her know. My cluster of chamomile is doing great, as is this trellis full of beans. Now, I planted these the same day that I planted that other trellis down there, and this one isn't doing quite as well as the other one is, but it is still doing pretty good. So I'm happy with how this is going, and I really love this over the pathway trellis. There's just something about that. It's kind of my favorite. This is that onion flower. Okay, so now at the bottom of these two trellises, or both sides of this trellis, I still don't really have anything coming in here. These are being saved for the melons that I restarted. My sweet potatoes that I put in over here are looking really good. These are your classic Beauregard orange sweet potatoes. I'm gonna have to do a ton of weeding this week after all of this rain that we have been getting. I mean, not too awful bad, but it's definitely gonna be a at least a full day out here. And I did actually have one, well, two, is it two or is it one? Two Kajari melons survive whatever it was that ate them, whether it was the birds or something else. And hopefully that one does all right, but it'll have some companions in here before too long. Over here on the other side of the trellis, I planted some Chinese noodle beans again this year, and you can see that they are coming up right there. All right, now this is that bed that I put in this year. first time putting it in, and let's talk about this for a second. So one of the biggest challenges I have found when building new raised beds is filling them. You know, yes, there's a little bit of an expense in building the beds, but the real expense is filling them up. And I filled this one with the same kind of soil that I filled the 2 new beds last year out in the other garden. Same brand, same everything. It's a little bit of an investment, you know, organic soil and all of that. However, I'm a little concerned with these new beds that are going in. I don't know what the deal is, but these plants are just not thriving. Like I said, it's the same kind of soil that I used last year on my other beds, but I have noticed that every new bed that I have put in this year with that soil is just not doing great. And this bed right here really kind of demonstrates the issue that I'm having. You can look at these tomato plants and see that, I mean, they seem to be doing okay. I have fertilized them, I've given them Epsom salt, they're getting plenty of water, especially after all the rain we had this week, but they're just wimpy looking plants. And it's not just the tomatoes, it's also right back over there. You can see that sunflower that is growing there. It's just looking a little bit wimpy too. Yeah. So I'm not sure what the deal is. And just to compare, as I said, these tomatoes are looking wimpy. And then look at these. These tomatoes are from the same batch of seeds, the same, you know, round of seedlings that I planted. I planted these the same day that I planted those. And look at the difference between these plants. These ones are doing great, and these ones are not. So I actually think I'm going to take some soil from this bed and get it tested and see what the deal is with it. It's a little disappointing to spend the money to fill these beds and have the plants looking like that. The raspberries that I planted out in the front garden, same type of situation going on. They're just not looking great. Same soil. And it also concerns me because that brand new bed that I just put in was also that soil. And this is soil I've used in the past. I've never had an issue with it. So there's something going on. But I just wanted to show that to you because, you know, I share the ups and the downs here. I share what's really going on, and everybody has issues. It doesn't matter how long you've been gardening, there's always going to be some sort of challenge that you're going to have to try and figure out. And with that, the air, I can tell the air has shifted. Those clouds are getting closer, and I think the rain is about to hit. Hopefully next week the weather will cooperate and we'll get a little bit of a fuller garden tour with everything that's been going on here at the farm. So that is it for today. Thanks for hanging out with me for this quick garden tour this week. I will talk to y'all next time.